Thank you everyone for joining today's event. Are you ready for college? Organized by VIBA. I'm Raj Vichatu. I'm a volunteer for VIBA, involved with VIBA and many activities that we do from Atlanta. So I'm sure you all acknowledge or experience the complexity of a college admission process and its intricacies and many variations and many different things that you have to know for a college admission process. I'm personally experiencing, my son is a senior, a rising senior right now, going through the process myself. No matter how much I think I know, I still find new things in this process. So these events like this that VIBA organizes are very helpful, very informative. Thanks to VIBA. So the goal for this is in VIBA doing this event is really educate, inform all the parents and high schoolers about the overall process of college admissions. What does it take to prepare for college admissions, and when and what you should be thinking at what stage of your high school care you have to do various things. So we have VIBA has organized 3 sessions during this weekend. We are in session 1, which is going to be about the overall admission process and some helpful tips about essay writing. We have some industry experts in here, and I will introduce them in a second. In the afternoon, you get to meet the student panel. We have invited students that have successfully enrolled into colleges, have gone through this process, and they'll share their experiences, their journeys, their stories, their challenges, everything in the afternoon session. So please do join us. That's at 1 o'clock. And tomorrow afternoon, we have a 3rd session that talks about the scholarships and the financial aspects of how do we support our kids and all in getting a good education for them. So I'm again, welcome again, everybody, and we'll get to that. We'll get to the main session in the event. But before we go there, I would like to introduce not one of the founding member of VIBA. He has been passionately, relentlessly working towards the cause of VIBA for the past 22 years. I have known him and I've seen him with that commitment all these years. He's also the board member of VIBA and the secretary of VIBA. And Vijay Vemulpalli, thank you, Vijay, for being here. I would like to ask you to say a few things about VIBA, what the organization is, what's the mission, and the type of projects and the impact we do on the community.
Hey, good morning. Thank you, Rajesh, for that introduction. First of all, I want to thank all the experts in this field of college preparedness for spending your valuable time in the next 2 days. And some of you have done it for several years for VIBA. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking your time, valuable time, in educating hundreds of parents and high schoolers in this area. And also thanks to all the student panelists that will be coming in the afternoon. Also, congratulations. So you all are joining a new journey and an exciting journey. And before you do that, you came here to share your experiences, varied experiences. You come from different backgrounds, going to different kinds of colleges, and your experience as a student, I know, is extremely valuable and sought after by all the students. So fantastic. Thank you for joining. I have been asked to speak briefly about VIBA. Most of you have probably heard of VIBA, and some of you may know a little bit more of what we do. But for those of you that don't know, VIBA is a platform, really. It's a platform to step on and do volunteering and make a difference. Our mission statement is simply to educate, enable, and empower every individual who wishes to make a positive difference in the lives of underprivileged children. Our focus is education, more so on public education, both in USA and India. So I request all the parents and the students to visit our website and gain knowledge of how we do it. We currently are supporting several models that are intervening in the public education system in India. Some of these models are focused on motivation, motivating the teachers, motivating the students, and generally bringing the excitement back in public education in India. Some of them are about teaching the teachers, how to teach English to non-English students coming from rural backgrounds. How do you teach them? First of all, you teach the teachers on how to teach so that they can effectively do their job. How to effectively teach math at a very, very early education so that the fear of math is once for all removed. So these are some of the models, scalable models. We pick these models, we identify these models, we scale them up, and then we work with several state governments so that we can make large-scale impact. So that is the way we are making a difference. We are currently working with several states in India, all over India. And one more request to all the parents specifically. In your next visit to India, please spare half a day to visit one of our projects. You will really know what's happening on the ground, how a difference is being made in India. So, and one final thought to coming back to what Vibha is. Again, it's a platform to make a difference locally as well as globally. Globally is focused on India currently, but more so locally, wherever you are. We have several Vibha clubs in USA, in Atlanta, Dallas, Bay Area, Milwaukee, New Jersey. So we have several examples of the youth, the high schoolers, and in some cases, even the middle schoolers, starting a Vibha club and making a difference in your local community. It could be in helping children that are going into public schools that need additional help. We are focused currently on bridging the digital gap as far as USA public schools are concerned. So identify what you can do locally. It could even be in the area of anything that excites you. It's a platform to do local volunteering. So start your local Vibha club in your high school. We have some parent coordinators that will help you, that will hold you in this process. Get involved, make a difference. And to all the parents, please help the work of Vibha, both in USA and India. Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Vijay. Thank you for that inspirational, about Vibha and all. One thing I want to add is, like Vijay said, get involved. And I'll tell you that even the volunteers are really fun to be around, just to make new friends, new volunteers. It's an organization of a lot of positivity. So that much I can vouch, because I've been with Vibha the last few years. All right. So again, now, thank you, Vijay, really. Again, check out vibha.org, and there's all kinds of information there. So to the main event today. So today's event is about college admission process and tips with the essay writing, and a lot more about that. Before I introduce the expert and speaker, I just want to talk about some logistics. Please do not put anything in the chat. If you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A section, and we will get to the questions at the end of the presentation. So first we will have a presentation, and then we'll follow up. We'll have enough time for the Q&A. So today I want to introduce you Miss Fisher. Miss Fisher is a graduate of Harvard Graduate School and has been involved in the college admission process for over 30 plus years. She has helped many families and students go through this college admission process. Like we talked, it can get complex real quickly. So today she is here to help us get a better understanding of the process and what all the intricacies of the college admission process. So without further ado, I will call upon Mrs. Fisher to present about the college process. All right.
Thank you so much, Raj, and the entire VIBA community for giving me the opportunity to speak about my favorite subject, which is college. So, as Assistant Dean of Admission at Colgate University and an admissions counselor at a campus of the State University of New York, I have read thousands of applications. I have visited dozens of college campuses and maintained relationships with current college admissions professionals. Since 2006, I've been helping students and their families understand and navigate the college admissions experience. My clients have enrolled in colleges and universities across the country that have helped them meet their academic and personal requirements, provided them with opportunities for growth, and set them on a path for future success. So if you've read The Phantom Toll Booth, you know that the dodecahedron describes himself by saying, "My angles are many, my sides are not few." And this is a perfect way to describe the college admissions experience. Today, I will share information about the various sides and angles of preparing for and applying to college. It's important to remember that most questions related to college admissions are best answered with the words, "it depends." It depends on a particular college's policies, and there are many varied policies. It depends on an individual student's educational goals and the student's specific experiences, opportunities, and strengths. So before we get into the details, I wanted to address the elephant in the virtual room, and that is COVID. This past year and a half has been challenging, and for some, it's even been traumatic. This is particularly true for teenagers who, just as they are in the midst of bursting out and asserting their independence, they found themselves holed up and held back. I want each of you to remember that this was a global pandemic. It was not limited to a particular class or a single school or a single state or even a single country. There is not a person in the world that was not impacted in some meaningful way by the changes that occurred in early 2020. This includes college admissions professionals on campuses across the country and across the world. They are well aware of the experiences of current high school students and how they are different from that of members of the classes of 2019 and before. I've had the opportunity to hear many admissions professionals speak this past year and have been struck by how flexible and understanding they have been about the experiences of high school students during this challenging time. I ask that you show yourself the same level of compassion. Even amongst the darkest of times, we can find bright spots. We have a lot to learn about refocusing perspective in the light of the pandemic. The unpredictability of our changed world is hard to manage, but if you embrace the pivot, you will be better for it. So, as you prepare for applying to college, it's important for you to consider why you want to attend college in the first place. Identifying what you hope to get out of college helps you think about what types of college experiences you are looking for. These are just some of the reasons that students will think about going to college. There is no one correct answer to this question, but, oops, and I've just lost my slide, sorry. But as the late Freight Hargadon, who the New York Times called the Dean of Deans, once said, the reason to go to college is to become a more interesting person because you are the person with whom you must live for the rest of your life. Whatever your personal reasons for going to college, I hope that you will use it as an opportunity to learn more about the world and your place in it. So now let's talk a little bit about how you determine which colleges you will apply to. I am confident that if I asked each one of you to make a list of the schools you are interested in, the same 25 to 40 schools would appear on nearly everyone's list. Yes, there would be some variation, but there would be significant overlap. These would likely be some of the most selective schools in the country. And so let's talk about selectivity. Professionals have started to refer to colleges that have very low acceptance rates as highly rejective colleges rather than highly selective ones, reflecting the fact that so many more students are denied admissions than are accepted. Individual colleges and universities have become more rejective, in part because there are more students seeking spots. In spring 2022, 3.75 million students will graduate from high school, peaking at 3.9 million students in the class of 2025. 68% of those students will immediately seek to enroll in college. That's a lot of students looking to apply to college. Additionally, the ease of filling out online applications and the growing trend of colleges to being test optional has contributed to a surge in applications. So, a handful of colleges are extremely difficult to get into, and these tend to be the ones on which students focus. But I want us to refocus and think about the reality of the college landscape. There are approximately 2,300 four-year colleges. On average, four-year colleges accept 2/3 of freshman applicants. This past year, only 24 colleges accepted less than 10% of those students who applied, and only 58 colleges accepted between 10 and 25%. 80% of college freshmen attend a four-year college that accepts at least half of their applicants. There is a perception that the more difficult it is to be accepted to the school, the better that school is. But I want us to refocus and think about what defines a good school. The real question is not, is it a good school, but rather, is it the right school for me? So we're going to talk a little bit about how you determine what that right school is for you. It takes introspection and it takes research. So it is important to learn about the different types of colleges so that you can see what is unique to one college and what is common to college in general. For example, nearly every school in the country provides a study abroad opportunity, but there is only one college in the country that has a semester-long faculty-led study group at the National Institutes of Health. Most colleges are open to visitors. And it is important, and enlightening to be able to visit colleges in person, but that is not the only way to get information about schools. For many, it is not practical or even safe to travel to college campuses. But one of the benefits of the pandemic is that colleges have made it easier to get information without having to travel to a campus in person. They have virtual tours on their websites or on YouTube where you can get a feel for the campus. They have also created lots of additional virtual information sessions and resources. So here's a pro tip. Be sure to sign up for the email list for colleges that you are interested in so that you can be notified about these opportunities for engagement and that you can be invited to them. Additionally, there are hundreds of student-led campus tours available on the sites Campus Reel and You Visit. While it is not the same as being on a college campus, this is an opportunity for you to get unvarnished viewpoints from current college students about their experiences on campus. So, if you have taken the PSAT or the SAT, you are likely getting lots of mail from colleges. I want to warn you, don't let that mail go to your head. Just because the University of Chicago sends you multiple engaging, high glossy pieces of propaganda mail doesn't mean that you can be expected to be accepted. They send those mailings to thousands and thousands of students. It is important, however, for you to like and follow the colleges that you are interested in on your favorite social media sites. And if you have a specific extracurricular interest or academic interest, follow the specific accounts for those things as well. You will get lots of good information on the day-to-day experiences that you can expect on a college campus through those sites. So I'm listing here some of the common things that students consider when deciding if a college is right for them. This includes the typical things like size and setting and location. Many students are concerned with the availability of a particular major, and most families are concerned with the ability of their child to be employed after graduation. I encourage students to think about what they need to be a successful student, and then seek colleges that will provide them with an appropriate environment. The questions I think are important to ask about college are, what am I going to learn? Does a college have a specific curricular program, like a core curriculum or distribution requirements? Will I be encouraged to explore, or will I be set on a path that is designed for me? So how am I going to learn? Does a college offer a co-op program or other hands-on learning opportunities? Will most of my classes be in large lecture halls, or will I have the opportunity for small discussion-oriented learning? Will I have the opportunity to do research in faculty labs? The question of who will I learn from? Will I be taught by professors who are experts in their fields? Are faculty focused more on undergraduate teaching or on their own personal research? Are faculty accessible to students in formal and informal ways? And lastly, who will I learn with? What are the students at the college like? Finding your people, the people who you relate to, is key to having a positive college experience. And this is especially true if you are seeking to be part of a residential college community. So when you're building your list, you want it to be balanced. Every school on your list should be one that you would be happy to attend and that will provide you with opportunities for learning, growth, and development. Your goal should be to have choices at the end of the admission season. You will have worked too hard in high school not to. And the way of making sure that you have those choices is to look to make sure that you have schools on your list that you are confident that you will be admitted to. So you need to be realistic about your credentials as well as the credentials of the kinds of schools that you will be applying to. It's not just getting into college. You need to be able to afford to attend college as well, and college is expensive. So make sure that you have financial fit schools on your list. Tomorrow's session on financial aid, scholarship, and financial planning will answer many of your questions about the best ways of paying for college. So once you know where you want to apply, it's time to focus on the application, which is your opportunity to tell the college who you are and how you will utilize the resources that college has to offer, as well as how you will contribute to the college community. And there are a number of different ways that you can apply to college, application types. So first, there is an early decision application. When you apply early decision, that is a binding agreement between you and the college. If they accept you, you have signed a contract to say that you will attend. You typically apply early in October or November to a first choice college, and you will only apply to one college early decision. You will receive that admissions decision well in advance of the usual notification date, usually in December. You agree to attend the college if accepted. The only way that you can be released from this agreement is if you apply for need-based financial aid and your package is not enough to make it possible for your family to attend. You should not apply early decision if you need to compare financial aid packages or if you are seeking merit aid to make college affordable, because you will be required to withdraw all of your other applications if you are accepted early decision. Alternatively, there is early action. You will also apply early, usually again in October or November, and you will again receive your decision early in the admission cycle, usually in the December to February time framework. Typically, you may apply to other college under early action or regular decision plans. There are a few universities that have a single choice early action program, which means that you are only allowed to apply to that school early action as well as your in-state public school universities. You will be giving your decision early, but you do not have to commit to that college until the May 1st national response date. Regular decision means you apply in the regular application pool, usually January to February deadlines. You receive a decision by April 1st, and then you need to give the college your decision by May 1st. Additionally, there are some schools that are on a rolling decision process, a rolling admissions process. You apply by a set date. That is during the August through June time framework. You receive a decision soon after applying, sometimes in as little as a week to 2 weeks. But then again, you have until May 1st to make a decision on where you will actually enroll. Deciding which plan you are using to apply to a particular college will help you set your path and set your timetable of what needs to be done when. There are additionally a number of different platforms that you can use to submit your application. And the first would be the Common Application. It is the most popular for my students that I work with typically. The Common Application is used for nearly 900 member schools, including for those of us here in Georgia, UGA, Georgia Tech, Georgia College, and Georgia State. You will fill out basic information once, and then you send it out to the colleges of your choice. These member schools are exclusively colleges and universities that evaluate students using a holistic selection process. They look at a variety of pieces of information to make their decision. The vast majority of colleges and universities in the US only use objective criterion, so grades and test scores, and therefore they are not eligible to be part of the Common Application. An additional platform that can be used in much the same way, similar to the Common App, is the Coalition application. There are more than 150 participating schools, including UGA here in Georgia. Each member school works to make college affordable and ensures that students graduate on time. Additionally, there are public websites for applying to public colleges, and individual schools and systems, many of them have their own, actually not many of them, just a few of them have their own platforms. Most notably, the University of California system, the Apply Texas system for the Texas state schools, MIT and Georgetown are two private universities that are known for having their own platform, their own application process. So what you enter on your college application is based on the choices that you will have made and the accomplishments you achieve during your high school years. By focusing on the process of going through high school and the process of applying to college, rather than the results, you will actually become the type of student who most any college would love to welcome as part of their freshman class. With that said, don't look at high school simply as a stepping stone to college. The high school experience has value on its own. It's a time for learning about one's strengths and weaknesses. It's about learning how to learn. It's about gaining independence and the self-efficacy that students will need to be competitive in college and in the job market. So the choices that you make in high school will serve as the foundation for future learning. In high school, you will have lots of choices to make, both academic and personal, and there are no empirically good or bad choices. You need to ask yourself, do I have a good reason for making the choices that I have made? And can I articulate those reasons to others? So now let's talk about some of those choices. You will have many choices to make about your academic path. And so you'll want to choose classes that do the following. First, provide appropriate challenge across disciplines. While there is room in every schedule for electives and non-academic courses, the most selective colleges want to see a focus on the 5 core areas. That's language arts, math, social science, natural sciences, and foreign language. The best prepared students will take coursework in each of those 4 areas in progressively more vigorous courses throughout their 4 years of high school. You want courses that play to your strengths as a student. You don't need to take the most challenging coursework in every discipline. For example, I know a student who was not interested in taking AP chemistry, despite the fact that most of her classmates in her cohort were. If she took honors chemistry, she would have been required to participate in science fair, which fell at the same time of year as National Novel Writing Month, a writing challenge she had participated in annually. This high-achieving student chose to take on-level chemistry so she could nurture her interest in writing. She earned honors in that class. She graduated at the top of her high school class and was admitted to a highly competitive college, all while being true to her strengths, her interests, and herself. So your high school schedule should also allow you to earn strong grades across all classes. While colleges want to see that a student challenges themselves, they also want to see that you can perform well in all of your classes. You are not serving yourself well if you are so overwhelmed by the requirements of, let's say, AP Physics, that your grades in all of your other classes suffer as a result, even if those are classes that you enjoy more or that are easier for you. You also want to allow time for extracurricular and independent pursuits. Significant learning happens outside the classroom, and colleges value these activities, as should you. Students need to have time in their day for self-care, as well as to engage in meaningful non-classroom activities. So a note about grade point averages. There are many ways to achieve a 3.5 or a 4.0 grade point average, or for that matter, a 4.5 grade point average with weighting. The final number is not as important as the way that that number is achieved. So don't focus solely on what that number says. Colleges will look at the narrative of growth and learning that took place over the 4 years and what that narrative tells about you as a student. With that said, grades do matter, and you should design a schedule so that you can achieve strong grades across your curriculum. Stronger GPAs allow for greater choice in the future, and choice is what we want to look for in thinking about college. So you'll also be choosing how you spend your time outside of the classroom. There is a misconception that colleges have an expectation that you will engage in a specific type of extracurricular activities, or that you need to check off boxes for things like athletics, community service, the arts, or club leadership. Rather than spreading yourself thin by trying to be the well-rounded student, focus on participating in activities that you find enriching and meaningful. There is not a checklist of things you must do in order to be considered competitive for college. Colleges are building a community that incorporates lots of different types of people with lots of different skills, talents, and interests. What is important is that you find activities that allow you to engage with the world. So the time that you spend outside of class and academic preparation is an opportunity for you to learn about yourself and to develop skills, as I said, and to explore areas of interest. You should never do an activity simply because you think it will look good on a college application. However, engaging in meaningful activity will help you be the kind of student that the colleges seek to have as part of their communities. I just want to remind you that extracurricular activities are not only school clubs or teams. They are anything that you do that is not a requirement for an academic course. It is more impactful to be a consistent member of one or two clubs where you can show an increased level of responsibility rather than belonging to a series of groups with less commitment. Once you find activities that excite you, take the opportunity to dig deeper into them and focus on leadership and initiative. Here's another pro tip. Throughout high school, keep track of your activities and accomplishments so that it will be easier to remember them when it's time to include them on your college application. So you want to be using the college application to tell your story. And colleges only know things about you in one of two ways. Either you tell them or someone else tells them. Your task in preparing your application is to determine what the college needs to know about you, and then to help them see the ways in which you will contribute to a campus, and then also how you will effectively use the parts of your application to make them understand why they should want you on their college campus, and therefore why they would want to accept you. So the parts of the application, obviously there are some basic biographical pieces of information, demographics, things about your education, your self-reported grades, your GPA, the classes that you've taken your senior year. And yes, colleges expect that you will continue to challenge yourself throughout high school, and they will look carefully at the strength of your senior schedule. You'll also be asked about academic honors. The Common Application, for example, allows up to 5 academic honors to be listed. So think again about keeping track of all of those things that have happened to you during high school. We've already talked a little bit about extracurricular activities, which will be part of what colleges are going to be asking for information about. And we will also be discussing in a great bit of detail standardized testing and writing the essays more in depth. So let's talk about standardized testing. What started as a predictor of first-year academic achievement in college is often thought of as a common yardstick used to compare students from a wide range of educational backgrounds, but it has become the topic of much consternation for students. Even before the pandemic, many colleges had either made testing optional or were considering it. The lack of testing availability due to COVID concerns pushed many universities to make testing optional. And in the case of the University of California system and a few other colleges, testing will not be considered at all, even if you submit it. For the class of 2022, nearly 1,600 accredited colleges are now test optional, representing more than 65% of bachelor degree granting institutions. Unfortunately, the University of Georgia system will be requiring either the SAT or the ACT for the class of 2022, and there are other university, particularly statewide systems that will be doing so as well. So with test options, or with the options to submit testing or not, the real question is, should I submit or should you submit your testing? You always want to put your best self forward in the college admissions process. So if your test scores add something positive to your story, then you'll want to submit them. If they are not a strength, then do not submit them. Conventional wisdom is if your scores are not in the top 25% of accepted students for a particular college, then you should not submit them to the colleges. A careful review of your scores and the rest of your academic credentials, as well as the schools to which you are applying, should be done before making this kind of a decision. But I also want to remind you that you are more than any one sitting or any one test score. And that's where the personal statement comes into play. The personal statement is an opportunity for you to talk about who you are beyond the numbers, right? Beyond the accomplishments, beyond the things that you do. And writing that personal statement is one of the hardest parts of the application for most students because it requires a depth of self-reflection that most students are unaccustomed to doing. It is best to start with an evaluation of what qualities you want the colleges to know about you, and then identify a story that demonstrates those qualities. The personal statement is not just about what you did or what happened to you, but more so, it's about why it matters to you and how it has pushed you through and helped you see the world in a new way. So a couple of things about that personal statement. Your statement should be one that only you can write. The topic does not need to be unique. In fact, there are very few topics that college admissions professionals have not read about and that have not been written about. But it is the details and your reflection that show your individuality and make your writing a unique piece of writing. You want to avoid submitting your resume in essay form. Don't simply repeat yourself by restating your extracurricular activities in your personal statement. Your activity sheet should include all of these involvements and achievements already. Your essay needs to explore a topic that is not already described in your application. That is, unless you have something compelling to share about a particular experience that cannot be captured on your activity list. Additionally, we know that good writing is about showing, not telling. So let the story that you choose demonstrate the qualities that you want colleges to know about you. And it's always important to proofread your essay. It's important to use proper grammar and to have correct spelling and to have a well-crafted piece of writing. But that well-crafted piece of writing needs to do more than simply show that you are a competent writer. Needs to reveal things about who you are. Some thoughts about how to make that essay more personal. So narrow your focus. Here's some examples. If you write about a volunteer position at a hospital, instead of a wide-ranging description of all the good you did and all of the things that you learned and maybe how it solidified your interest in becoming a doctor, zero in on a single positive interaction with one person and maybe how it propelled you to engage with other types of community involvement or other kinds of learning. If you're writing about your love of long distance running, ditch the cross-country team victories and defeats. They're not as personal as the description of what you see on your favorite route, or what music you listen to, or what podcast you listen to while you're running, or how running helps you stay centered in this crazy world that we're living in. And if you're writing about, let's say, your award-winning photography series, the award is already mentioned elsewhere in your application. Take this opportunity to show what you've learned by looking through the lens of your camera. Get specific. Talk about perspective. Cliches are as much a wasted opportunity as content that tells a story that is not yours. So again, think about the ways that you can use the things that you do to tell personal stories. Rather than writing specifically to one of the 7 Common App prompts, write the story that you want to tell. You can easily fit it into at least one of the prompts. And everyone has a story. Sometimes you just need to dig a little deeper to figure out what that is. So let me tell you a story. This past admission cycle, I was working with a student who was struggling to find a topic for his personal statement. Many of his activities were put on hold due to COVID. And when I asked him how he spends his time when he's not doing schoolwork, he sheepishly told me that he spends a lot of time playing video games. As I probed a little bit more, I learned that he is a competitive Overwatch player who is ranked in the top 97% of players internationally. He has invested over 1,000 hours into playing Overwatch and spent countless more hours watching professional players and analysis to improve his skills. He ended up crafting a lovely essay expressing how playing Overwatch helped him learn to deal with setbacks and low points, to be able to shake them off and refocus for the next game, and ultimately to the next challenge. He was surprised that his game playing, which his parents often criticized as not a productive use of his time, could make such a good topic. He was accepted at many colleges and will be enrolling as a freshman at UC Berkeley in the fall. Yes, everyone has a story. You just need to think about the things that you do in new ways to find the story that you want to tell. There are other stories that are going to be told, and those are done with college-specific supplements. So what we talked about before was what the Common Application asks you to submit for all colleges. Additionally, there is information that that specific colleges will ask. They will include things like the type of decision plan that you are applying to the college under. If you have relatives who attended those colleges, how you might have heard about the college. And additionally, there are college-specific essays. These differ from that large-scale personal statement that you will do. These are usually designed to convey a formative intellectual or personal experience. They tend to be shorter and more directed than the Common App personal statement. Often they will ask things like, why are you interested in attending the particular college, or what your areas of academic curiosity are, and how you intend to study that when you get to college. So that is an additional piece of writing that you may have to write for additional colleges. So the way that you communicate with the college are through all of these pieces of writing, your academic transcript, those things. Additionally, the way that others communicate you are primarily through the recommendations that are written by teachers and your school counselor. Teachers tell the college what kind of student you are and how you engage in the classroom. Typically, colleges will ask for 1 or 2 recommendations, and they want them to be from academic teachers, typically in core courses. Your counselor, on the other hand, will submit a report that puts your achievement in the context of what is available to you at your school. It will usually be accompanied by a school profile, which lists courses offered and other information about the school and its students. A counselor would be a great person to speak about unusual circumstances in the school or in your personal life if they have occurred. And just know that every counselor submits information about how your school and your school system has dealt with COVID in terms of what options were and so on. Additionally, you will need to submit, or your school will need to submit, a mid-year report. Many of your applications will be submitted before your senior fall grades are available, particularly if you're applying under some of those early application processes. All schools to which you are applying, even to those which you have already been admitted, will receive your mid-year report. The school to which you ultimately will enroll will also receive your final senior grades. Senior academic performance is still important. So it's really important not to slack off and to take your academic learning seriously throughout your senior year. So as we wind down and think about the college, applying to college, students, I want you to take ownership of the process. This is your future for which you are preparing. You want to meet with your guidance counselor no later than the spring of your junior year. You want to research colleges of interest. You want to use all of the tools at your disposal to help you keep focused on what's important to you. And most importantly, you want to keep track of deadlines. Probably one of my biggest pieces of advice is to keep track of your deadlines. There are lots of different ways and timetables and things that need to be done, and you want to make sure that you are keeping everything in order. Parents, let your student take ownership of the process. It is their future for which they are preparing. If students are looking to be successful in college, they need to be able to be successful in getting themselves there. What role can you play? Helping with organizational tools is really useful. Helping them keep track of deadlines and gathering information about campus visits. You want to be honest about financial constraints. Have a conversation about the financial aspect of the college search process. You want to be supportive. You want to encourage, encourage, encourage. As you can tell from all the information I shared, there are lots of moving pieces. Wouldn't it be nice if applying to college was as simple as putting on a sorting hat to determine the perfect college for you? Fortunately, there is not a single place that can serve, there's not only a single place that can serve you well. College in general is pretty great. I wish you well as you embark on this educational journey. And I want to be available to you. If you have additional questions or concerns after the formal presentation, you can feel free to contact me. Here's my contact information. I will be dropping that into the chat box as well. For now, I'm happy to answer any specific or general questions that you may have. Again, please post your questions in the Q&A box, and we will, I'll do my best to give you the information that you need.
All right, thank you, Ms. Fisher. That's fantastic information. I have heard this kind of presentation multiple times. Still, I find new things when I hear that stuff. So it's really amazing the amount of information you shared with us. So before I get to the questions, I think multiple people have asked the question whether this recording will be available and the PowerPoint will be available. Yes, they will be made available at some point. May not be immediate, but they will be made available through the Viva site. All right. So before we get into the other question, other plugin I want to put is Viva Atlanta is conducting an event, the Dream Mile. Most of you know about the Dream Mile event. So Viva is conducting the Dream Mile event in September. It's a virtual event and a in-person event. So I would like for you all to come participate and help for the cause of Viva. All right. So I have a question. So again, everybody, if you have a questions, please put them in the Q&A chat, Q&A window, and we will address as many as we can in the time we have. So Ms. Fisher, the first question I have here is, can you give us more insight into an admissions officer, what are they looking at when they look at a student's application? What they focus on? What areas do they focus on? How do they review it?
Sure. So in general, and again, different admissions offices have different procedures, but in general, your application will be read by multiple people. So it's not one person making a decision. They are looking at your application in terms of your academics and in terms of all of the other pieces. So you've heard the term holistic review. They're looking at all of the pieces. And ultimately, what I think colleges are looking for students who are going to take advantage of all of the wonderful opportunities that these colleges have to offer. Why are you interested in these colleges to begin with? It's because they have great opportunities. Colleges want people who will take advantage of these opportunities. Additionally, they want people who are going to contribute to the life of the college. And so they look at what you have done in the past as a reflection of what they can expect that you will continue to do in the future. And so they are looking for people who are not just going through the motions or looking for the easiest way to get through high school, but who are actively engaged with their living and their learning. And that looks differently for different students. So it's not like they're looking for specific things. And again, different colleges have different approaches to how they will or what kind of student they are looking for. One of the really valuable things for a student to do is look at the mission statements of the colleges to which they are looking to apply, because you learn an awful lot about what a particular college values, and it can help you understand if your values align with that particular college. Ultimately, though, there is a sense that these colleges have in most cases, many more applicants that they can take, and so there really isn't a thing about, is one student going to get in above another because they did this or that other thing? Colleges also have institutional goals that they need to meet. They need to be able to field the football team or the soccer team. They need to be able to have musicians who are going to participate in all of the orchestras. They need people who are going to, have a broad range of academic interests. They can't just have students who are interested in one particular college or school or program. And so building the class is also what the colleges are doing. So I think students are very focused on what they can do to make themselves appealing to a college. Ultimately, you have to put your best self forward and trust that you will end up in a place that values you in the way that you are and that is going to give you opportunities. You are muted. I can't hear you.
Yes, I am. Thank you. So in this COVID situation where some colleges are asking for the standardized test scores and some are not, and most are not. So for the colleges that are saying optional, how do we decide, should we submit or not submit? How does one decide that?
Right, and I did talk about that in the presentation a bit. Again, do your scores play to your strengths? Colleges are not saying, tell us about all of the classes you didn't take, all of the activities you didn't participate, tell us about your worst moments in life, tell us about all the times that you have failed. They're saying, tell us about your best self. And so determining, are your scores your best self, or are there other pieces of your application that you need to focus on more? And that holds true not just about test scores, but about other things. There's been a number of questions about AP scores, and I didn't really talk a lot about AP scores when talking about standardized testing, because AP scores are not a required part of the admissions process. You are able to self-report them on the Common application. There are a few schools that may ask for them, but But in general, AP scores are not a factor that is required as part of the admissions process. So again, if your AP scores are strength of yours, then you will want to submit them. If they are not, and from what I've been hearing over, particularly over this past year, last year a little bit, but certainly this past year, students' AP scores are not necessarily where many students would have liked them to be, especially in comparison to the grades that they got in the class, because so much of the learning happened virtually and so on. So, you just don't need to submit those. AP scores will be submitted to the college to which you are accepted and that you actually enroll in for an evaluation of credit. So there's two parts of the admissions process. It's important to take vigorous classes, like AP classes, to show that you are challenging yourself, and that's what's important. But not necessarily the score itself is not part of the admissions criteria. So I just wanted to make that clear. Additionally, again, it is not a requirement that you take AP classes. First of all, there are some schools that do not even offer any AP classes, or there are schools that only offer a handful. You can't be expected to take an AP class that is not offered to you in your school. You are expected to take the most challenging courses that are appropriate for you, that you can be successful in. And so whether or not you take AP classes and how many you take is really a choice that needs to be determined of, are you going to be successful in those classes? Because ultimately it is more important to be successful than to challenge yourself to a point of putting yourself at a breaking point.
I think that addressed at least 5 or 6 questions that I see in the chat, or maybe more. So thank you for that. So other question that comes up is about this foreign language. There are a lot of questions about foreign language. How many should they take? How far should they take? Should they take that in the senior year? Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. As I mentioned, the most competitive colleges are looking for students to have 4 years of foundational learning, and that foundational learning is included the 5 core areas of academic success, right? So that's going to be language arts, social science, natural science, math, and foreign language. There are a lot of students who, just either start foreign language early on in their middle school years, and so by the end of sophomore year of high school, they may have taken, let's just say German 4 or AP German. And so they've sort of tapped out of the opportunity that's available. Then it's okay to stop taking the foreign language. But in general, the recommendation, and again, this is not for all colleges, but if you are aspiring to the most competitive colleges, taking 4 years of all of those 5 core areas is sort of the gold standard. If you have reasons for not doing so, and you're replacing that foreign language with something else, that's fine. I would always encourage students to take more than, a lot of colleges require 2 years, and students are like, yes, I'm done with my 2 years and I can be done with it. I would encourage you to think at least 3 years. And again, what are you replacing it with? It should be an academic core course.
All right, great. So the next one is, are IB grades converted to GPA? If yes, how are they converted?
Right. So how GPAs are calculated, both by your school and then by the university, are very different things, which is why I talked about like the number of your GPA. I have kids come in all the time and, throw a number out at me, and I'm like, let me see your transcript, because I'm not as concerned with the number as I'm concerned with how you got to that number. What classes did you take? So IB, I'm the mother of 2 IB diploma graduates, so I am very familiar with the rigors and challenges of the IB diploma. IB grades, again, some schools, the IB grades actually, the official IB grades from the IB program are not available until well after you've been accepted into college. What does get reported is your scores. In some school systems here in the United States, most of the school systems report, you still get a grade that is in keeping with what you would be getting if it were a non-IB class. So you're not taking the 1 to 7 level scoring on a particular class. The important thing about IB is that you've challenged yourself in the rigor of the courses that you're taking. How it translates, some schools add 10 points to the GPA for AP or IB classes, some add 7 points, some back out thing. I mean, there's all kinds of different ways of calculating the GPA. What's important, though, is how you've done in the classes that you've taken. And so I think in general, there is a sense that the IB diploma is a gold standard of learning. And so colleges do recognize all that goes into that. And they will, whether it's a concrete like calculation in terms of a numerical calculation, or a calculation in their own minds of saying, this is somebody who's really gone above and beyond, IB does that.
All right. Next one is a little bit non-academic. So question is, how do admissions officers or colleges look at students' social media accounts?
I actually was just on a webinar talking about that with a number of admissions deans from colleges you probably are aware of. And in general, the rule of thumb is that they're so busy, they're not they're not checking social media as a process and as a regular part of the admissions process. With that said, if something is brought to their attention, or if they want more information, let's say they read about something that you've done in your application and they want more information, or they want corroboration, or you've created a website and they go to that website, they may go down and start looking at things. So it is important to make sure that your social media represents the person not only that you are, hopefully, but that you want somebody else to see you to be. And that's good advice, in general, whether you're talking about college admissions or not, but they are not as practice checking out student social media. But there are cases, and there have been cases, sometimes very public cases, of students doing really inappropriate and stupid things, quite honestly, on social media. And I know of cases where students have been had their admissions decisions withdrawn because of, unwise decisions that they made on social media. So be careful about how you put yourself out into the world, not just for college admissions, but just in general.
All right. So in this post-COVID era, or through the COVID era, with no SAT scores and all these different scenarios, how do we categorize safety colleges or reach colleges or fetch colleges?
Yeah, and I will tell you, I have always been really good at sort of being able to assess a student's admissibility to a variety of colleges. Having SAT scores as sort of a guideline. Once that standardized testing is pulled out, it does make it a little bit more difficult because there isn't a standard. In the long run, I think students will benefit because students will be able to focus their time and attention on doing the things that actually will help them be great people, rather than just trying to, get an extra point on the ACT, or raise their SAT scores by 10 or 15 or 20 points. So it does become challenging. I think you can look at first of all, it's about the acceptance rates. So if you are a straight A student with near perfect standardized testing and a whole range of great college extracurricular activities, you are a qualified student for any college in the country. You could be admitted at any college in the country. the fact is you will also likely be turned down by some of those highly rejective colleges, because almost everybody who applies is sort of that level. And so it does make it a little bit more challenging. This year, for example, I had students who I was pleasantly surprised that they got into places that I really was not sure that they would have gotten into, and maybe had COVID not have happened, they might not have been accepted. Likewise, there were students who sort of were a little bit cocky about their ability to get into particular places, and it didn't turn out as well for them. And so that does become a little bit more of the challenge. But I think what you can do is presume that any school with those very, very low admit rates is reached college for just about anybody. There are certainly schools that are looking much more at quantitative factors. Here is my grade point average. Here is, they're not looking at building an interesting class and all of that. And those schools where you know that your grades fall in a certain category will be ones that you know that you can get into.
So there are many questions about the admission process itself. So the other question I see here, it's a bit different, is what is stopping a student from applying to a college to an obscure major to help their chances of getting in, and then changing their major once they get in?
Okay, so the notion, first of all, there are many colleges that the major that you choose is not really a factor in your acceptance. There are some schools that you actually are applying into a particular major, but there are many colleges, particularly probably many of those that are on many of your lists, the liberal arts and sciences colleges and universities, that expect that a student will change their major, right? So it is not presumed that the major that you put on your application is what you will actually end up majoring in. It is important to know that if you put one of those obscure majors in as a listing, the question is, how do you back that up? Just putting that you want to study, Arabic on your application in and of itself is not a factor where somebody's going to say, oh, we want that student. There has to be some kind of underlying understanding or backstory to where that interest comes from, because many of the colleges in their supplemental questions are going to ask, what are you interested in studying, and why are you interested in studying it? You have to have a reason for it. So, and additionally, there are many schools where you actually do need to apply into a particular major. And if you apply into another major, you may not actually be able to transfer into the major that you actually want to get into. So I'm a believer in, you need to be authentically you. This is not, how can I game the system? Because I will tell you, having read lots and lots of applications, people the readers are able to sort of sniff out what doesn't feel authentic. So my best advice to you is be authentic to what it is that you actually are interested in. Tell that story, live the life that will set you up for success, and you will find it.
Great. So there are a few questions about SAT and ACT. So I'm trying to summarize these things because there are a lot. So overarching question is, how does a child decide if SAT or ACT is more suitable? Does colleges have a preference of an SAT or ACT if they're accepting both? So questions in that area.
Sure. So there is no preference for schools that require standardized testing or accept standardized testing. Either the ACT or the SAT is fine. I typically, one of the things that I hear a lot, and it's, in my opinion, a bad strategy, is just go in and take both of the tests cold. Don't prepare at all. And I don't understand why anyone would sit for any test unprepared, particularly a test that is as weighty as these two. So a lot of the thought is you go in and just take it cold, see which one you do better on, and then focus on that particular test. I sort of look at that in a little different. I think you want to do some research. So there are plenty of opportunities where you can take a sample SAT, a timed, and make sure it is timed, because a big part of the challenge of standardized testing is making sure that you not just know the information, but that you are familiar with the test process. So take a timed practice test, and you can do that on your own. They're available online. You can do it through test prep companies. And then you can make an assessment of which one you did better on, which one you liked better. And people have preferences. There is no right or wrong of you know, I know siblings who one loved the SAT and one loved the ACT. So once you've determined which test you like better, then put your energies into preparing for that test. You do not need to go and spend the time or the money for that matter to sit for a test simply because you think that it's gonna help you. In my opinion, yes, you need to spend time on the front end with preparing for testing, but don't spend all of your time preparing for a test. And in a lot of ways, the best test preparation is giving yourself the time early on in high school to learn the skills that you're going to need. So starting to take the SAT in freshman and sophomore year, thinking you can get it out of the way, is a bad strategy. It is much better to dive deeply into your academic coursework, learn how to read with meaning, take challenging classes that help you do that, and then sort of in the junior year start your testing. But starting too early is just setting you up, or setting the student up for a long road of challenging test preparation. And there are lots better ways and more important ways, quite honestly, and things that colleges would rather you see. I often ask students, to tell me what they've done during a summer, or what they do in their free time. And more often than not, I have students, the first thing they say is like I'm preparing for the SAT. I'm studying for the SAT. That's not an answer like that colleges are going to want to hear, right? They want to hear that you're doing active, engaged things. So it's important to prepare for the test, but it's not important to have the test be the sole focus of what it is that you're doing in your high school years.
Right. So I'm trying to summarize a few questions here about the college courses. So there are a couple of questions about college courses. If you take a college course, is that seen as an advantage, or is that seen as a better on my application? Is college courses better than the AP courses? So around this college courses, the importance of college course and what the role it plays.
Sure. Not all college courses are created equal. And why you're taking those courses is also, it goes back to that notion, what do you do and why are you doing it? Typically, I think colleges want to see that you are using the resources of your high school, because as I said before, they're looking for you to use the resources of their college. They want you to sort of take advantage of all of the things that you have offered to you. If you're taking college courses because you've tapped out of opportunities that your school has to offer. So for example, in math, for advanced math track students who maybe have taken AP Calc BC in their sophomore year of high school, you need to have 4 years of math, right? You need to be more progressive. And so often the opportunity for math will be to take a college course that's either offered at the high school or that's offered on the college campus. But if you are just sort of, you haven't taken advantage of the full scope of classes on your at your high school, and you're just sort of wanting to, maybe even because you've heard that it's an easier class, that calc on the college campus is easier than calc in the high school, so you decide that you want to go that route. That's not necessarily the right reason. So again, it's why you're taking it. But again, colleges want you to challenge yourself appropriately. So if you you want to take a progressively more challenging course curriculum. There has been some buzz that if you have the choice between taking AP classes and dual enrollment classes, that AP classes are considered more of a challenging kind of course sometimes in some of those other classes. But I know plenty of students who have gone full dual enrollment who end up getting into great colleges. So again, the answer is it depends.
Okay, so next one, I want to combine some of these questions. So again, how do admissions officers of college look at community surveys or their activity in sports? Like if you favor the high school, how are they looked at? What importance do they have? I think you covered this some of your presentation, but if there is
right. So what you do is important. But again, if you are a recruitable athlete, then the time that you spend with athletics is going to be much more important than, and by recruitable athlete is somebody who's going to be able to contribute to the school's athletic teams. Then the time that you spend with athletics is going to be weigh much more heavily than if, you that's not where you're going to end up. Spend time doing things that are important to you. Find ways of taking what you love and sharing it with others. Take time to not just think about yourself when in the activities that you're doing, but extend yourself into other realms as well. But again, there is not one set of activities. I saw somebody asked, like, how many activities do I need to do to get into Harvard? It just doesn't work like that. If you look at the profiles of students who get into places like Harvard, the range of things that they've done, it is not about fitting into a standard. There's not a rubric that if you just check off all of the boxes, then you meet the criterion. The most highly selective schools or highly rejective schools are looking for distinguished excellence, right? They're looking not only that you do things, but that you do things at a really high level. And again, that looks different for different kinds of students. So.
Raj, we have a hard stop at 12:35, so we have maybe 15 minutes.
Okay, sounds good.
Sure. I'm just scanning too.
Scanning through, yeah. So I have, while you're scanning through there, roughly how many colleges should a student apply to?
Well, that's a good question. My own daughters, I had one who applied to 13 and one who applied to 1. So, the one applied to 1, she applied early decision, she got in, she knew that's where she wanted to go. It was one and done, right? So again, it depends. If the answer is it depends. The more competitive your credentials are, and the more aspirational your college list is, there is the likelihood that you will apply to more colleges, because you could get into many of those very highly selective schools. But you might not, and so you need to have, as I said, backup to make sure that you're going to have good choices. So part of it is about what you aspire to. I think in general, most of the students that I work with are applying from anywhere from 8 to 12 is sort of a good guideline. Honestly, I think just throwing applications out to the list of the top 20, and there's a whole nother conversation to be had about rankings and what that means and how valuable that is. But just throwing a list out, because again, many of those colleges are going to ask you to tell them why you're interested in that particular school. And if you don't have a good reason, that's a reason that you will not be accepted. And so, for example, for a student who is applying, decides that they want to apply to all the Ivies, right? You're applying to Brown, which is an open curriculum, right? No required courses whatsoever. You can take whatever classes you want, appealing to a population of students. And also Columbia, which has a very strict, strong core curriculum. There are classes that there is a class that every single student at Columbia takes, and there are a range of courses that is prescribed for you. If you're applying to both of those schools, the question would be, have you really thought about what you're looking for in college? So again, how you put together the list needs to be carefully thought out, because you need to have reasons for why. Because if you don't have good reasons and you just apply to 20, 30 schools, and there are students who do that, first of all, that's a whole lot of work and a really stressful thing. And ultimately, you're going to one school. So like, it's not about trophy, catching trophies and seeing what if. It's about finding places that are going to meet your academic and personal goals. Mm-hmm.
So, go ahead.
Yeah, I just saw one that I just want to address because it's sort of personal to me and what I do. Somebody asked about the role of hiring somebody like me, an independent educational consultant, to help guide students through the process. Is it necessary? No. I know plenty of very successful students who have been very successful in the process, who do it on their own, and so on. This is what I will say, however: you need to have somebody who you can go to for information, and particularly for students at large public high schools, where your guidance counselor may have 400 students that they're advising, and they really don't have the time to give you the attention to be able to answer your specific questions. Having somebody who you can use as a resource is important. I think it's also sometimes important to have somebody who you can who has sort of a detached perspective on you as a student and what you have to offer. It's sort of like the student that I talked about before, the video gamer, right? I saw a story in what he was doing that he didn't even understand that there was a good story there, because I was able to step outside of his own experience. And so sometimes that becomes helpful to students as well. Is it necessary? Is it required? No. But if you are somebody who needs to know that you have somebody keeping track of things and understanding who you are, and you need somebody to be able to sort of act as a coach, which is sort of what I do, then it can be useful and assistant. And there are a whole range. If you have specific needs, there are people who specialize. I saw a question about learning disabilities or things like that. There are people who specialize in a variety of different kinds of educational needs. And so if you have a specific educational need, it can sometimes be useful to have somebody who is an expert in that area help you find appropriate places and find you ways through the process.
To extend the question, there's a question here about that the counselors can also, counselors like you can also help find scholarships and financial aids.
Sure. There are people who do that. The best source of financial aid for students, and particularly merit-based scholarship, the whole conversation about need-based and merit-based scholarship, but if you're seeking merit-based scholarship, the single largest source is what's going to come from universities themselves. And so finding universities that offer merit scholarships would be something that you would want to be looking for. And there are people who specialize again in that. That is not something that I specialize in, except for building a list that incorporates schools that offer merit-based scholarships. If you have a estimated financial contribution that that is too high, you're not going to get any need-based financial aid, but you need money to support yourself, to get yourself through college, then you need to seek out merit-based schools. And many of the schools on the list that students have, the Ivies and so on, they don't offer merit aid. It's all need-based financial aid. So where are you looking, finding schools that have that? So that is something that people do, and there are people who have expertise advice in that, but it is also something that you can do on your own. If you have a specific area of is something that you a special talent or skill, you can always Google scholarship and left-handed people, right? There are scholarships for that, and you can spend a lot of time researching and applying to scholarships. Know that many of those scholarships are small. Small scholarships add up, but you need to think again about how you go about doing that.
Right, we got a few more minutes here. So kind of combining few more questions here. Does the demographics of the school have any impact in college admissions? Or is there like an, let me paraphrase, how does it affect if there is a quota system come into play, like the X amount of people are taken in from X county or X high school?
Yeah. I think there's a perception that colleges have quota systems. And historically, years ago, yes, very much so. Not so much now. So one of when I was doing college admissions work, there was one year that we had 24 students apply from one high school. I think we accepted like 23 of them because they were all quality students. They all met the criterion. There was not a reason, right? It wasn't like, well, we're only going to take this one. With that said, that's an unusual scenario, but it is important to think about yourself in the context of the school that you're coming from. So if you're applying to the same school that the top 20 kids in your school are applying for, and it is a school that has limited number of spots, they're not going to take typically all 20 of you. They're probably going to take the more challenged students, or the students who have done better. Although there are always cases where, they may take number 10 in the class and turn down the valedictorian for all kinds of reasons. So again, there aren't quotas per se, but there are, again, the colleges are building classes. And so they have a lot of priorities that they're trying to fill. And so each individual student that they accept, it's not just, can they do the work? Are they going to contribute to the campus? It's also, do they meet all of the different things? But they're not specifically saying, with the exception of, there are only a certain number of spots available. And so in that way, there is a quota. If you don't make the cut because there are other students who are more competitive than you, or more desirable than you for whatever way, that's part of it. But in terms of thinking that you are in competition directly with the other kids from your school or from your county or from your state, or it doesn't quite work like that.
All right. You answered these things. Yeah, there's some questions about the early decision and early action. Are there any advantages of applying for early decision or early action to specific colleges?
Right. So I think there is a perception that applying early decision, particular early decision, is going to give you an advantage, because if you look at the accept rates for early decision, they tend to be higher than the accept rates for regular decision, right? What you don't understand, or what isn't in that statistic, is that typically recruited athletes, almost all of them, are going to be accepted in early decision. Right. So those recruited athletes are not taking a spot from you. They're going to be accepted anyway. So that skews the numbers. Special cases are also very often, skewed into that number. So when you look at your and individual students, the typical students' chances, it is not a significant difference, with the exception of this. If you are applying to a school early decision that does not see students from your particular area of the country or with your particular credentials, and you are highly desirable, if you apply early decision, there is more of a likelihood that you will be accepted, because they know that you're going to enroll. And college admissions offices are not just concerned with, who they accept. It's about meeting enrollment criteria. So if they know that they can get, a highly qualified student from a geographically desirable area where they don't normally see students, that could be a plus in applying early decision. But when you apply early decision, you want to make sure that you are committed to going if you are accepted. Early action, a little bit less so, although one of the things that you do want to know is that many of the highly competitive school scholarships require that you apply early action in order to be considered for those scholarships. And so what that does is it also skews the applicant pool for early action, because it means that all of the most competitive students who are aspiring to those highly competitive scholarships apply early, and many of them will get accepted. And that also bumps up the numbers, the percentage of acceptances for early action. So I encourage students to apply early action to schools if you can, because it gives you information about where you're accepted earlier, and it may mean that there are schools that you won't have to apply to later on if you if you get into the ones that you wanted to early.
All right, I think that's we are at time. So thank you very much, Ms. Fisher. Exceptional information. I'm sure everybody has learned a lot in this session. I see that we have more questions. If you are interested, you can always reach out to Ms. Fisher at collegeisnext.net. Please reach out to her. And also, I also ask you go look at viba.org and see all the great events and activities that Viba is also doing. Thank you very much. Thank you again for joining.